So, folks, I'm going to talk now about the Montana plan, all right? And there's an issue here, right? Which is that not a lot of people know that the Montana plan is an option, oddly enough, right? So, what is the Montana plan? Well, the Montana plan looks out at the political corruption caused by Citizens United, the flow of money into US politics that it enabled, and says, what do we do about this? Because up until this point, there has been effectively not much traction gained on getting that money out of politics, right? Because Congress is so deadlocked, they're not going to vote on it. God knows the Trump administration isn't going to try and marshal that effort. The other option is getting every state, not every state, but a majority of states across the country to call for a constitutional convention and amend the Constitution that way. That's also very difficult and been slowly going through the political process, but it hasn't really it's been like a decade since I first heard about that plan, and we aren't that much farther towards a constitutional convention specifically for that. What is the Montana plan envisions a different approach, which is essentially saying, okay, so Citizens United says that, the speech of corporations and corporate money cannot be impeded, and that money and using your money counts as speech. So, where does that leave us with regards to corporations? Well, effectively, corporations, even though the Supreme Court says corporations for these purposes are people, that's not the case for states. Because states have, for a very long time, had the ability to dictate how businesses conduct themselves within each state, within their sovereign borders. And so what the Montana plan recognizes and takes action on is the very aspect of state power that the Supreme Court has already reaffirmed time and time again, which is that states have the right to regulate commerce within their borders. They have the right to be able to, tell businesses, hey, you can or cannot do business in this state. The Montana plan is born, right? This is an initiative by the Transparent Election Initiative, which is a group dedicated to pushing this particular plan. I'm actually going to play you guys a video put out by Robert Reich, father of Sam Reich, who many of you might be familiar with. And it also does a pretty good job explaining, and it has some flashier visuals. So let's take a look here.
Stop doom scrolling. I have some good news. We can get rid of Citizens United.
What?
What?
A very unlikely state is leading the way with a first-of-its-kind plan to curb corporate spending in elections. Montana! Yes, Big Sky Country is taking on big money. Organizers in Montana have drafted a ballot referendum for voters to consider in 2026 that would no longer give corporations the power to spend on Montana's ballot issues.
Dropout TV's Sam Reich? Yeah, that's his dad.
Or in its local state, and even federal elections. The best part, it would not require the Supreme Court to overturn its Citizens United ruling, which said the government cannot put any limits on independent political spending by corporations. Nor would this plan require an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which would likely take years, if ever. If this referendum passes in deep red Montana, it could easily spread to other states, including yours, whether through the ballot or in your legislature. So how does it work? You see, corporations are creatures of state law. States create them, define them, and redefine them. The Supreme Court has held time and again that corporations are granted their powers by the states. As the court itself said in 1819, quote, "A corporation is an artificial being, invisible, intangible, and existing only in contemplation of law." A state doesn't have to give its corporations the power to issue stock or acquire a smaller competitor, for example, and a state doesn't have to give its corporations the power to spend in politics, which is exactly what Montana is trying to change. With Citizens United, the Supreme Court said that the government cannot stop corporations from spending independently in elections. But unlike other corporate powers, and this is important, the states never clearly decided to give corporations political spending powers in the first place. When a state exercises its authority to define corporations as entities without the power to spend in politics, it's no longer relevant whether corporations have a right to spend on politics, because without the power to do so, the right to do so has no meaning. And here's...
Which I do want to say sounds like an absolute bullshit legal argument, but it's the kind of bullshit legal argument that absolutely does hold up in court.
Another important point. If Montanans vote to no longer grant their corporations the power to spend in elections, that decision would also keep the corporations chartered in the other 49 states out of Montana's politics. State by state, this would effectively neuter Citizens United, which, by the way, is enormously unpopular. 75% of Americans disapprove of it. And it's no wonder why. It has allowed corporations and the billionaires that control them to hijack our elections and distort our democracy while drowning out your voice. But this plan out of Montana will go a long way to putting power back where it belongs, in the hands of the people. I urge Montana to pass this referendum denying corporations the power to spend in politics, and hope your state will follow Montana's lead. Please share this video to help spread the word.
So I'm going to share this link with you guys because several of you requested it. Here you guys go. There you go. So what is really important about what is happening right now in Montana is that this is not going to be passed by their legislature. This is not going to be passed any other way than through a simple vote by people in Montana. Basically, folks in Montana fought like hell and got a ballot initiative added to the upcoming 2026 ballot. Provided they can get 30,000 signatures. That is the last hurdle. And as far as I have been able to tell, currently the number of signatures they have is 17,000 as of May. So they have until June 19th. So if you are in Montana, you should check out the Transparent Election Initiative in order to collect more signatures. Because basically, this needs to get on the ballot in front of voters. And we know that when it comes to voters, getting money out of politics is overwhelmingly popular. It is overwhelmingly popular among Republicans and Democrats, right? In fact, you know, just today, there was an update on the initiative to collect these signatures.
Have you heard of the term dark money? It's a phrase that has been floating around recently as volunteers across Montana and here in Butte collect signatures in support of I-194, also known as the Montana Plan. Volunteers say that it is a way to get undisclosed spending out of Montana politics. But some people here on the street say that it may just help individual voices be heard by Montana politicians.
Hi, sir. Are you interested in getting dark money out of our Montana elections?
They've got their own agenda. They want somebody in there, so they're going to try to buy their way in there for them. And that's just not fair for the normal person.
Look, I just gotta say, this ballot initiative wins over guys like this. All right? Like, if you can get a ballot initiative added to the ballot to get money out of politics, you even win over guys like this. All right?
A normal person.
After exiting the courthouse, Butte voter Dan Roberts is approached by Lisa Farino, a volunteer who is collecting signatures for the Transparent Election Initiative.
Ever since Citizens United 2010 Supreme Court ruling, there has been a flood of secret anonymous donations to campaigns.
Lisa says dark money donations come from many different places, including corporations and nonprofits that funnel money into political action committees or super PACs that then churn out radio ads, television ads, and mailers to support chosen candidates and denigrate opposing candidates.
Basically, this will stop the amount of just corporate money that is flooding our elections with donations in Montana from all over the country. The amount of donations has gone up 28 times since 2008, and we just feel like it's time for that to stop.
Lisa says dark money is a problem.
Yeah, since 2000, like, just wrap your head around that. Since 2008, like, political donations haven't just doubled or tripled. They've gone up 28 times. That's insane. It's actually insane. It's an exponential level of growth for political corruption, essentially.
For both Republican and Democratic candidates. After signing on his support, Dan says special interests are damaging the state and the nation.
The country's not going along very well right now, but a lot of people are discouraged, so.
Free public screenings of Dark Money, a Montana-made documentary that has appeared on PBS and has graced the big screen at Sundance and the Big Sky Film Festival, will air May 6th at the Emerson Cultural Center for the Arts in Bozeman and on May 7th at the Covolite Theater in Butte. In Butte, Megan Thompson, MTN News.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Megan. Also, Megan in chat saying, I'll ask my parents to sign. Hell yeah. If any of you know anybody in Montana, get them to sign. Okay? The I-194 initiative needs more signatures. Okay? And I also just want to throw out there here that Montana is no longer alone. Okay? Big steps made recently. Let's pull this up here. If you'd be so kind. Here's American Progress. Oh, God.
Citizens United. Tuesday, the Hawaii House of Representatives passed SB 2471, first in the nation legislation, on a bipartisan vote. The bill says that Hawaii would no longer grant corporations that operate in the state the power to spend in politics. This would get corporations and dark money out of every level of Hawaii's elections. This is a powerful and weirdly simple approach that stands on 200 years of foundational corporation law. But this corporate redefinition authority hasn't been swung around by states in a very long time, and no one has ever seen a bill written quite like this in Hawaii's entire history. So it was a big lift, and this is a big deal. It took a lot of work by all the committees and committee chairs in the Senate and the House. Heroes of the day are Hawaii House Speaker Nadine Nakamura, Vice Speaker Linda Ichiyama, and Majority Leader Sean Quinlan. They got this bill through the House, and now all they have to do is appoint conferees to the conference committee that will iron out differences between the House bill and the Senate bill. If it gets out of conference, it heads to Hawaii Governor Josh Green for his signature. Hawaii took its cues from the Montana plan, where organizers are gathering signatures to put the same concept before Montana voters this fall as a ballot initiative. But Hawaii is racing ahead. Its legislature is closer to that of any other state in the country to proving that we don't have to wait for a federal constitutional amendment or a new Supreme Court to take corporate and dark money out of our elections. We can do it right now through existing state authority over corporate charters. So this is great news. Congratulations to the Hawaii House and its leadership, Speaker Nakamura, Vice Speaker Ichiyama, and Majority Leader Quinlan. It's on them to take the next steps. Stay tuned. Great news out.
Yeah, so Hawaii also taken the fight. Taking the fight. It's great. Here, let's take a look at some local reporting from Hawaii on this, because it's just really, really exciting. There are multiple ways to get this passed on a state-by-state basis, and different states are going to have to pass this in different ways in order to make it work. This is one of those things, though, that I think that when we organize on a state-by-state basis, and you start seeing, for example, the partisan gerrymandering that's happening both in Democratic states, part of that Democratic gerrymandering push to that arms race, that political arms race that's happening against Republicans right now. But part of that on the Democratic side should also involve overwhelmingly passing legislation in all of the states that are successfully democratically gerrymandered to get dark money out of politics. Every single state that is organizing politically against the threat of Republican gerrymandering right now should 1000% be organizing in order to pass legislation or ballot initiatives to get dark money out of their politics. It should go hand in hand, okay? And when I talk about getting involved and like joining your local Dems, joining your local DSA, all that stuff, which, by the way, join our Discord. We can help you get started doing either of those things or both of them. Or you can head over to riverboat.gg and chat up GamerG for help with DSA and Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. But this needs to be part and parcel of like this democratic push and activation around the country. Okay? It is absolutely necessary that we get money out of politics so that we can actually start having real conversations about political change and like forging a new future that is pro working class, like a country that actually works for the common working person. Because this country right now does not work for the working people. It only works for the billionaires who pay for it. Okay? And that's bullshit. So let's get money out of politics and let's beat these Republicans at their own damn game, okay? Also, let's jump into this.
Hawaii could become the first state to limit corporate influence in elections. A Senate bill is headed to final vote at the Capitol this week. Supporters say it could reshape how campaigns are funded, but critics warn it could face major legal challenges. Nikki Shenfield reports.
For 16 years, the U.S. Supreme Court's Citizens United decision has allowed corporations and organizations to spend unlimited money on political campaigns. Hawaii lawmakers are trying to challenge that by redefining what corporations are allowed to do. Senate Bill 2471 would classify corporations as artificial persons created by the state and make clear that they do not have the power to spend money to influence elections.
So what the Citizens United case said was that corporations get the same rights that people do, which doesn't make sense. If corporations are creations of state law, then they shouldn't get the same human rights that are protected in the Constitution. If this passes, it will be the first piece of legislation like this in the country. And I'm really proud that Hawaii is positioned to lead the way on overturning this really bad decision that has corrupted our democracy for the last 16 years.
Individuals like you can give a certain amount of money to a campaign, but there is a limit on how much and how often you can give.
For corporations, because they represent so many people, they are able to give far much more money than one person can.
Advocates say the goal is to crack down on what they call dark money.
Where it seems like when one person opposes one group's interests, they are forced out, and money, significant amount of money is thrown to people who support that group's interests, and then they are put in positions of power.
I also just want to point out for folks who might be worried, like, oh, maybe this isn't going to pass. Hawaii has a legislature, both houses of which are controlled by Democrats, and the governor is also a Democrat. This has a very good chance when it is taken up for discussion tomorrow to actually get reconciled between both the House and the Senate in Hawaii, and also get signed into law by the governor. Like this should be happening in every Democratic state right now. Okay? Every single state that has a Democratic legislature and governor should be passing these laws.
But opponents, including the state attorney general's office, warn that the bill may violate the Constitution and argue that Citizens United is still the law of the land and political spending is protected speech.
There's always some concern about the new, right? But the fact is, for the last 16 years, our system has been corrupted by unlimited spending by corporations who are given tremendous benefits under Hawaii state law for taking corporate form. And it's time for us to redefine that.
At least a dozen.
I mean, how will SCOTUS argue this? I mean, essentially, states have states have the power to determine how businesses operate within their states. That is an intrinsic part of our system, and so the argument that would be made is effectively essentially states define what businesses are on the state level. Like, if a business is operating within a state, the state gets to define what it means to be a business there, right? So this is a pretty old and ingrained power affirmed by many, many, many different kinds of cases over and over again throughout American history. It would require overturning a huge chunk of American jurisprudence, not just like a one-off decision. And yes, many Democrats will fight us on this, but I think in Hawaii's case, this has a good chance of passing. I do not trust the SCOTUS's view on this. Well, yeah, because this SCOTUS doesn't have any concern for law, so we'll have to see, of course, how SCOTUS rules. But it would be pretty difficult to reconcile the idea that states have the right to determine how business is conducted within their borders with the idea that you can't stop businesses from spending money how they will. That's insane. That's insane.
And other states have introduced similar legislation. If it passes final vote next week, it heads to Governor Green's desk. If signed into law, the measure would take effect in 2027. Nikki Schoenfeld, KHON2 News, working for Hawaii.
Hell yeah, let's go! If SCOTUS shoots this down, the effects of it will be a shit show. I mean, yeah, it would effectively put any corporation above and beyond the reach of the government to do anything to manage it. The ramifications for SCOTUS ruling against this would be pretty substantial. All I gotta say here is I find the Montana plan really, really exciting. And you can actually see on the Transparent Election Initiative's website where different things stand in your respective states. Most states have an exploration phase currently locked in where different lawmakers are exploring whether or not to introduce bills. You also have, California drafted it, but it hasn't really been pushed into the direction of actually having momentum behind it. But Colorado is building. Montana has an active campaign. Hawaii has a preparation phase. Pennsylvania has a preparation phase. There's a lot of work left to do here. And the Transparent Election Initiative, you can actually volunteer. You can actually volunteer and get involved and show up to get these different ballot measures voted on, right? So I'm going to actually give you guys a link to this volunteer sign-up page. And if you are interested in being someone who collects signatures or someone who is going to get the word out or try and make contact with elected officials to ask them or pressure them to actually take up this legislation and push it through, this is a perfect way for you to get involved in trying to push through this specific legislation. Okay, I think maybe one of the most important endeavors going on in our politics right now, and it actually has a shot of working. And so if you have been concerned about money in politics, as you should be, this is one of the ways we can actually fight back against corporate power. All right. I'll also link it in the description for the segment when it gets put out as a video. So you should find it down in the description if you're watching this not live. And I just have to say, again, this website also has a lot of great resources just on what is the Montana plan and the different things that are happening right now. how states can act, etc. It's a pretty great initiative. I like it quite a bit, and I think it has great potential to actually achieve its goals. So all of that being said, folks, get involved. Get involved. Join the Transparent Election Initiative. Get this ball rolling, because honestly, the sooner we get corporate spending out of our politics, the better. Like, we should not be putting up with having to organize so many people against billions of dollars. It is deeply unfair. It is deeply unequitable. It is deeply anti-democratic. And the reason everyone right now is looking around being like, oh, the America taken over and controlled by oligarchs, it's because of money in politics, and we can get that money out. So let's do it. Well, let's excise this this cancer. All that being said, folks, if you need help joining your local Dems, and by the way, you could probably advocate even more effectively for a Montana plan-like initiative in your state if you are within the local Democratic Party. If you need help joining, you can join our Discord and reach out to Dragonfly. Dragonfly will help you join your local Dems. You can also join our Discord and reach out to Gamergy. Gamergy will help you join your local DSA. And if you got anything out of this, folks, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. For whatever reason, comments longer than 8 words really help in the algorithm, so please consider doing that. And also tell your friends and family about this show, because the more of you that spread the word, the bigger this channel gets, and hopefully the more influence we'll have to get people involved in our political system. Because again, I very much believe in the power of democracy and the people that make up this great country. So all that being said, last but not least, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It's non-tucking lingerie. It's sexy as hell. It fits. It's really cool. Check it out. ImogeneOlivia.com. There's a link down in the description for that as well. Go check it out. And let's keep on going, folks.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.